My name is Billie. My pronouns are they, them, or she, her. And welcome back to Rebel Movement Podcast. I think I said that in the wrong order, or did I say welcome to Rebel Movement Podcast twice? Anyway, if you're new here, we had a tradition we didn't really keep up with. I didn't keep up with. That we used to have every fifth episode be a chill thing. A couple of times, or like a chill kind of lighthearted short episode. Maybe this was a long time ago, but we had a couple of them be 20 questions, that kind of thing. Just to give you, I'm saying we because then we started off myself and my old co-host Jordan, and it's been a long time since I've done one of those. I'm not that long, I guess. I did have a questions episode recently. I didn't really plan this ahead of time, so I didn't give you a chance to send in any questions. So I just found some random questions on different websites, and I'm just going to go through them. So we'll call this 20 questions part. Who knows? Welcome to episode 90. It's wild to me that there's been 90 episodes. I'm recording with a new headset now. It's definitely helpful. I think the audio sounds a little bit better. I would love to hear what you think. Do you notice a difference? I hope so. And I have done a little bit more editing in the last couple of weeks, not tons and tons because I have a bunch of other stuff going on, but I have done a little more editing. So let me know if you have feedback. Hopefully the audio is better quality. I feel like it sounds like it to me anyway. The mic is really close to my mouth. And I'm trying to be really mindful of when I record it, you know what? Maybe I'm not going to point it out. I'm not even going to point it out. We're just going to move on. I don't think I have any updates for you that you haven't already heard. I have some new things on the on-demand. It's only $20 a month. You can take as many classes of the on-demand as you want. I think there's about 50. I just uploaded a couple more the other day. There's a chair mobility class now. So for those of you who love the mobility class, but you would like it to be all standing or in a chair, that's a great one to start with. Kind of gives you a little bit more options for the mobility that are specifically for standing or a chair, so that when you go into the other mobility classes, I do say these options as much as I can, but when you go into any other mobility classes, that way you don't really have to wait for me to explain it or demo it. You might be like, oh, I know this option already. I already did this. Or you might just have a repertoire of things you could go through. If you find there's a movement you don't like or a movement that doesn't feel very good, you can choose one of these other ones. So that's the only thing I'll say. Keep it super short because everything else is short. And we're just going to jump in. Some of these, I haven't really looked at all of these questions. We're just going to see how it goes. The first one is, if you had to eat one food or dish daily for the rest of your life, what would it be? And I am a little bit surprised by my answer already. Maybe I don't know if it'll be controversial. I feel like salad. Hear me out. I don't mean, okay. I guess you tell me what you think the rules are for this, because in my eyes, salad could be a numerous amount of different types of salad. For example, salad with chicken nuggets on top. It could be fruit salad. It could be tuna salad. It could be candy salad. It could be chip salad. It could be Caesar salad. It could be garden salad. There's so many salad options. And I feel like that's cheating. But you know what? I'm going to keep it. Because there's so many different salads. Like a friend of mine, I don't think this was like 2 years ago, went to her house, we were having dinner, and she made a salad, and I can't remember what vegetables she cooked. It was like carrots or some of the vegetables she cooked, and I don't know if this sounds silly. I'd never thought of adding cooked vegetables, like warmer vegetables, into a salad. It was so good. My favorite, I think, one of them is salad with cheese and chicken nuggets, or Sometimes apples, but that's a little bit weird with the chicken. I guess it's not that weird. Also love taco salad. Basically, I don't know if everyone I feel like has a different understanding of what that means. What we called taco salad when I was growing up was like lettuce, peppers, tomatoes, whatever, like basic salad, plus the taco meat. That's what we called it. That's probably not an accurate representation of what it is. Cheese, maybe corn. I love corn. And tortilla chips on top, or crushed up tortilla chips. You can do corn chips too. It's actually very good with corn chips. And often I do ranch. Mostly I have to do ranch dressing or make my own because a lot of dressings have lemon in it. There's a fact that I don't think I saw on this list that you might not already know about me. Do I have any allergies? Yes, I'm allergic to so many things. I'm allergic to citrus, not citric acid. So far, it doesn't seem I don't have any kind of reaction to that. Or I think sodium citrate is the other one that's been fine. However, lemons, limes, grapefruits, like actual citrus fruits, both in terms of smell, if I touch it, like if it's in like a lotion or whatever, and if I eat it. It's gotten way worse over the years, which sucks because honestly, I love oranges. I love lemonade. I love lemons. I love citrus fruits. I love the smell of them. Can't even do that. And did you know citrus? There's like lemon juice in most yogurts, some ice creams, salad dressings. It's in so much stuff. Hand sanitizers. That was really difficult during the pandemic. Because I get like cold symptoms at first with the smell, and I'm like, oh God, I'm starting to panic. I also can't eat gluten. And there's a couple of other things I'm allergic to as well, like thimerosal. I think that's how you say it. I think it's a preservative for vaccines, which I can still have vaccines. Just, it's usually, as far as I'm aware, is more often in the things like the flu shot when it's a certain type of the flu shot. So I can still get it, but it has to be a certain type. And then I think like zinc, which I think is pretty minor. And then, is that right? Not zinc, copper. And then there's a couple of other things I can't pronounce. They're like a million letters long. It starts with an M. It's usually in the last 5 ingredients in detergents and soaps and shampoos, like a lot of stuff like that, which also sucks. I usually have to read the ingredients of all of those things for forever. So there you go. There's a question that was not on my list. If you could be any animal / mythical creature, what would you be and why? I like this question a lot. And I also feel a little bit stumped because I'm not entirely sure of the names of some mythical creatures. I feel like if there was a mythical creature that could fly and also kind of run like a horse and between like a horse and a bird or a cat and a bird, I don't know. I'm making up my own mythical creature. Like a cat or a dog and a bird. So I can fly, but I can also run. I can be super comfy and have good naps and have good food and have good friends. But I could also fly and run and nap and sleep and eat. I'm not really a very deep answer. It's just kind of a random one. And I don't know that would be my like for sure concrete answer, if you know what I mean. I would love to know yours. What's the weirdest dream you've ever had? When I was little, I still have nightmares and night terrors, but when I was little, it was a lot worse. And I used to have, it doesn't sound scary as an adult, but as a kid, it is scary. I watched the movie Jumanji when I was a kid. If any of you know it, and I mean the one with Robin Williams, just in case, because now there's like 3 or 4 of them. The original one with Robin Williams in it. It must have been after I watched this movie because I had a dream that we moved away from, I used to live in St. Catharines, Ontario. I moved away from our house there. And then we were going back to visit it for some reason. And we could go into the house and look around and whatever. My sister was in the dream and she's a baby. And it was my mom and maybe my grandma. and like people who lived in the house with me. Just my sister's age probably wouldn't have matched what it should have been, but you know how dreams are. So we get to the house. It's right beside a highway, and it's surrounded by monkeys with guns. Like monkeys, I don't think that's the proper term. I don't know what type of monkey, like the type that's in Jumanji, where they can stand on their back feet. I mean, I guess most monkeys can do that. Small-ish, like maybe up to my hips now. I'm not sure. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter. You can use your imagination to decide whatever. They had vests and guns, and it was terrifying. Most of them are very fun, but they are weird. Okay. If you were given the chance to explore the ocean or space, which would you choose? I find both of them equally terrifying and exciting. I think that I want to say space. However, it does freak me out a little bit, but somehow it feels like we might know. I don't know if we know any more about space than we do about the ocean. Because there's so much ocean, as far as I'm understanding, that we haven't even explored yet. But the idea of being underwater and something going wrong, although being out in space and something going wrong isn't better. It's funny to me that I'm like, oh, like let's think about the things that are going wrong and scary versus like the exciting parts of it. I think space, if I could explore space, I think that'd be really cool. I do love the idea of exploring the ocean, especially if, I mean, the only thing with the ocean, I mean, they're both dark, I guess, right? I was going to say the only thing with the ocean is that if it's a deep part of the ocean, I'm assuming there's not a lot of light and you probably can't see very much. So I'm going to say space. Like space is a pretty solid answer. I want to know what yours is too. And if you are a person who knows more about these things, I would love to know why you're choosing yours. And where, if there's something more specific, like where in the ocean or where in space, because I think that would be really cool. These things are not in my expertise at all. Love them, reading about them and learning about them. I think they're so cool. I'm not an expert. What's one book / movie that profoundly changed your perspective? I was going to say perspective. I had an answer up until perspective. I'm actually going to change this because I don't want there to be so much silence on this podcast. But, well, okay. One book that changed had a profound impact on my life, I would say, and not for any sort of big emotional reason, is Where the Crawdads Sing. And that's because when I was in school, you had to read books, obviously. You have to read things for essays or whatever. And then when I went to college, I had the same kind of thing. And then somewhere along the way, I got this idea that it reflects better, good, like what reflects good on you. Wow. That's not a good sentence. Anyway, that if you've read a lot of classics, and I do think classics are cool, but sometimes they're boring. I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes they're really boring. And I used to have a really hard time just not finishing them. It wasn't even a thing I thought was an option. Like when I was grade 5, I started to read Lord of the Rings, and it's a good book. However, it is really boring to me. There's so much description. I get distracted so easily that I just can't pay attention. And I had it in a version where there's 6 books, so each book was split into 2. And I remember I had gym class one day, and I had brought my book into the change room or something, or the bathroom, whatever, and someone stole it. And I was like, oh, thank God I don't have to finish these books. Which, like, looking back now, I feel silly that it never even crossed my mind. But so I just didn't read very much at all for a long time. And when I was a kid, I loved reading. Like you could like get lost in whole other worlds and stories in them, and in books, and I absolutely love it. But it was like years and years. I don't know how many years, 8 to 10 or something, where I would read like maybe read 5 books, maybe more than that. I'm not 100% sure, but it was not that many. And there was not a lot of love for it. And Where the Crawdads Sing, I don't remember why I picked it up or what happened, but maybe because I would often grab books and then would have a really hard time finishing them. And then they just be on my bookshelf for forever. Where the Crawdads Sing was the first one that I got that I was like, oh my God, this is so fun. Like I immediately I was in the book. And it was the book that reminded me that I love reading. So I do think it's a good book. I have a hard time recommending books because I get nervous for some reason that you're going to judge me or you're going to not like it and think that my taste is bad. But really, it's like, which I get that same like little panic with in terms of like choosing music when I'm like at work with somebody else or in the car with someone else. I don't know why. I don't know where it stems from. I know that logically it doesn't really matter, but I just feel like I needed to say this whole thing because I know I'm not alone in it because I've had this conversation with a few other of my friends that read. And just the truth is that everyone's just going to like different books for different reasons and it doesn't really matter at all. So if you don't like it, that's fine. Book that I would say it changed my perspective. I think it has the power to change perspective and it's extremely important is How to Be Anti-Racist and by Ibram X. Kendi. Amazing book. So important. I think that any book that's approaching topics of or bringing up topics or themes to do with anti-racism, to do with Indigenous lives, queer lives, fat folks' perspectives. I think all of those have the power to change our perspectives. Books about trauma, they have so much power to change our perspective and give us so much more empathy. If it's something like trauma, empathy, or understanding, or just a very unique perspective, whether it's books that are like fiction, like Toni Morrison has some really great fiction books that are based on true themes like of racism and things that people actually experienced, or it's a book that is nonfiction, whatever feels easier for you to start with. But those, I think, would be books that would have change in perspective, profoundly change perspective, and I think it's important to, whether you're reading them or listening to them. Okay, we'll do a couple more. There's a lot of really good questions out there, and I love that because every time we've done this episode, I feel like we've chose different questions. Have you ever had a paranormal or unexplainable experience? Not firsthand? Well, I'm sure there's unexplainable things for sure, but I don't know. But so yes, I have had a paranormal experience. However, I was a toddler and I can't remember it, so I can tell you the story. Also, there's another like ghost story in my family. So, I mean, I don't think they're scary. They're nice stories, but just a little, I guess, warning here that it's about ghosts. If that freaks you out, you can just skip ahead. Like, I'll keep it under a minute. I'll try. I don't know. I'll do my best, but you can skip ahead. Okay. This first one, I'm a toddler. My dad had passed away not that long ago, as far as I'm aware. We lived in a little apartment above my grandma's house, and you had to go outside and go down the stairs in order to get downstairs. So I'm upstairs, my cat's up there, and my mom had gone downstairs. I'm asleep. She has the baby monitor, whatever. And all of a sudden I just start crying, and the cat starts freaking out, and it's on the baby monitor. So my mom gets up, goes to the door, and as soon as she puts her hand on the door handle, she hears a man's voice where there is no men here. It's specifically my dad's voice saying, "Shh, it's okay, don't cry." And I love that story so much. I love it so much. I carry it with me everywhere. I think it's a really nice story. And The other one is my grandma that we lived with passed away when I was a little older, and her best friend was traveling somewhere. It's going to be over a minute. It's a short story too, though. Traveling somewhere and somewhere warm. My grandmother loved the warmth. She tanned a whole bunch. She loved being in the warm sun. So this friend of my grandma's is with her partner, and they're on this, I don't know, this like long dock thing. I don't know what the proper term is. And she sees someone. She's like, wow, that looks so much like my friend, my grandmother. It's like weird. And they ended up talking. And for the purposes of this, we'll just call the other person my grandma, even though it's not this friend's grandma. You know what I mean? So they're having a conversation and just, how's it going? Whatever, how's the weather? Whatever. Non-significant things. And then my grandma looks at friend and asks, how are the girls? And that's why we were called. We were younger. It was a little bit of a longer thing, but I'm just going to keep it there for anonymity. And there's just this feeling of like total comfort and calm. And then apparently grandma turned around and like walked off the deck in like the end of the deck by the ocean and just like disappeared. So there you go. There's my stories. There might be more, but I don't know them. I like those ones a lot. Let's do 3 more. I feel like if this is long, I can't tell. I forgot to start a timer. Let's see. How do you handle failures or setbacks in business? I think this is really tricky. It changes many times throughout your year or years or day as a business owner. I feel like the way that I responded to setbacks earlier on is much different than now. However, there's still some similarities. At the beginning, it felt like a setback meant that I failed everything, not just failed like this one idea or class was a failure, just that like I, myself, and my whole business are a failure, which I know is not true. It's not how it works. But it would be really difficult, and I'd have to go through this whole emotional processing journey every time. And now it feels a little bit easier. I've done connecting with other business owners, and I've done research and like done a bunch of internal work. And first of all, recognize that it's not really talked about, but most businesses have some parts of it that fail. Like I think Apple had tons of products that failed before whatever the first one took off, their first computer or whatever. There's so many authors who are so successful now, like Stephen King. I feel like everyone's heard of, where he had moments where he was completely doubting his work. He had other books before that never really took off. Like it's a universal experience. And I feel like knowing that it's a universal experience, whether you're in writing or you're an entrepreneur or you're making tech stuff, it kind of takes the personal part out of it. It's not a personal failure. It's a thing that happens. My partner used to say at the beginning, I don't think it's his quote, it's from somewhere else, but he'd say, you just have to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. So I just did that. I'm going to have to do that forever, as most business owners will have to do too. And while sometimes, yes, I still have feelings come up, because business ownership can just do that. It can bring up trauma stuff. It just does. And I think it's really normal and makes sense. And it's a very healthy thing to do, to process these feelings and outside of the business, and then make business decisions when you're feeling more grounded. It's helpful to remember that it's normal and come back to it when you feel a little bit more grounded. So give yourself permission to rest, have the time to feel your feelings. If like no one signed up for a workshop or whatever, feel the feelings, feel the disappointment or fear or whatever, and then come back to it and connect with other people who are doing similar things, like people who are who own businesses, or if you're a writer, connect with other writers, or you know what I mean, that kind of thing, so that you're connecting with other people and everything hopefully will feel a little bit more normal. Okay, second last question. What is your perspective on the stigma around mental health? This one is a very close one to my heart because talking about stigma around mental health has been something that I have been doing for years and years, like longer than I've been a yoga teacher. I don't know for how long, but it's it stigma around mental health can be really harmful. It can cause a lot of damage and really make people feel really isolated. And just kind of with the last thing we were just talking about, it's so empowering and reassuring to know of other people's experiences and that you're not alone in something and it's not personal. And stigma around mental health can really make things personal that aren't and shouldn't be. Like if you're like, I grew up with this idea or this feeling of like, if I have depression or I have trauma or difficult, I struggle with this stuff, that means I can't be successful. It was reiterated in previous work scenarios where I was told I can't be a good yoga teacher and with mental health issues. And I think it's all bullshit. I think that your history and your mental health have no control over who you are as a person. Or I know that they can affect you. I'm not trying to say they can't affect you, but I don't mean you are not those things. You are not solely your depression or solely your trauma. And you are a complex person and a wonderful person. You have so many different parts of you. And having trauma or mental health does not automatically mean that you're going to fail everything, or it doesn't mean that you can't be successful. It doesn't mean you can't be a good teacher. It doesn't mean you can't whatever. Maybe it means you have a slightly different approach to these things, which is fine. And I think it really should be the universal experience. We should all have our own approaches to things like work and life because we're individual people. But I think it's really important to, I don't know if breaking the stigma is the right way of saying it, but because that's not even just like that part that I just talked about isn't even the most harmful thing about stigma. That isolation feeling can really can sometimes be the thing that pushes folks over the edge. We won't go deeper into that, but it can cause irreparable harm. And I think that my approach anyway to facing mental health stigma or trying to break it down, whatever way you want to say it, is to just be honest and talk about the things that I experience and the things I go through. Because there's nothing that to be ashamed of for having had trauma or having mental health stuff, right? Like I didn't choose to have my trauma. I did not choose to have mental illness. Those things are not who I am. They are a part of my story that are important, and maybe they can help me understand how my brain works, or how to care for myself a little bit better. Or they'll help me help point out things that I need to work on a little bit. Or maybe they mean that I need to rest more or ask for help in different ways. But no one should be ashamed of what they've been through. I know that I'm saying that, and I know firsthand that doesn't mean that you're not going to experience shame, because shame is a feeling that will come with trauma a lot of the time, but it's, I don't know, other people's discomfort of your feelings or your trauma is their own problem. And I'm just going to say, as a little asterisk, just in case, I feel like there's going to be a couple of you, I'm not saying to trauma dump on everybody, which means just to say all the details and just dump all your just kind of verbally let everything out without asking for permission, if they can listen, without being mindful of things that could be triggering or harmful. I'm just meaning, if you're experiencing feelings and other people are uncomfortable, that's their problem. If you are an open person talking about your feelings in a way that is still respectful and someone else gets offended, that's their problem. That's it. I mean, I could have a whole episode on this, but we're going to keep it short. So let's pick something from this random list. We're going to just scroll. Maybe I should have done that. It's a really slow thing. Okay. Let's see. Whoa, some of these are not. Some of these are not very funny or like not very lighthearted. I was trying to pick a lighthearted one for the last one. Let's see. I'm so sorry. There's so much pauses. Okay, we'll do this one. Do you like roller coasters? Yes, I do. I also, I mean, when I haven't been on one in a really long time. When I was younger, I used to get a lot of, like, I'd be really scared to go to them. I remember one time we went to Canada's Wonderland and I waited in line for this ride for so long. It was when we have to go like into a mountain cavey thing. When we got into that part, I started to get more scared and more scared because it seemed like it was going to be really intense. I was pretty young and I had to back out. But when I was old, like, the next time I went on it anyway. Again, I went on it instead. I went on it then. And it was really fun. So I do like them. I do get scared before I go on them, or at least I used to. There you go. Thanks so much for listening. I hope this was fun. I hope it gives you a little bit of a chance to get to know me and maybe different things that we don't usually get to talk about together, whether it's here or in the podcast, or whether it's here working with me. If you have questions for me, this inspired anything, if you have answers to these questions you want to share, I would love to hear it and get to know you better as well. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a really fantastic week. Please review, share with your friends, subscribe, leave any answers to the question in the little box here on Spotify if you swipe down, or send me an email to info@movewithbillie.com. Follow me on Instagram, and most importantly, sign up for my newsletter. Link is in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.